Today I'm going to make a mouse nest. A lot of my viewers remember my little mouse that was found inside of the air filter of my car this past summer. So we are going to make a home for this little mousie. I will be putting it inside of a shadow box. Now this shadow box is filled with supplies that I will be using for this project. Pretty much what this is, there's a plain shadow box. This one happens to be plastic. I got this at a yard sale for, I don't know, it was $5 for the full box, and there was quite a few of these in. I think there's probably 12 or 13 of them. But anyway, what you will need for this project is some newspaper, some wool yarn, and of course some dried grasses. Now the first thing that you should be doing for this is taking your newspaper and cutting it into very fine strips. Now to save time, I had already done this step, but I'm just going to show you what you do with this. Once you have your really fine strips, you just crumple them up and just keep distressing them. If you have a paper shredder, you can even use that, but I like to have some that are much finer than that of what a paper shredder could do. But anyway, you just distress it, and you can rip it a few times too, until what you're left with is something that is like this. A nice shredded, crumpled paper ball. So we'll just put this over to the way. For your wool yarn, what you do is where it's twisted, you take it and you go and you twist against the twists, so that it starts to unravel. And then you can just take it and pull it apart. You'll be left with a curly strand, but this isn't as far as you go with it. You just pull it apart. Just keep pulling and pulling until it's just a mass of hair, because that's pretty much all wool is. Now, if you can find a source of wool that's not been spun, then that's even better to use, because you don't have to pull it apart and do this step. Anyway, you'll end up with a fuzzy ball, and you just keep teasing it until you get a nice mass. And don't worry if you get a little bit of your newspaper or other supplies in there, because it's just going to be mixed anyway. So there you go. You take this and you make it into this. You take your newspaper and you turn it into this. I've also got some old man's beard here as well. Now you're going to need some needles, and possibly even a small crochet hook for this project. I'm not exactly sure what I am going to need until I need it, because I've never done this before. Now to make our nest, I'm just going to grab a handful of it and twist it around. The trick is to make the nest base to fit inside of the shadow box. Chris, what are you doing? A bit smaller than that. Okay. This looks like the size we need for our nest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this off with a little bit of the wool. Ike, what are you doing to that straw? Just going to wrap this around. Try not to break it because it is quite fragile. Ike, are you helping me? No, she's just being a pain, aren't you, Ike? Okay. Starting to fall apart there. Nobody said it wasn't going to be a messy craft.
Well.
No, Icarus, you leave the mouse alone.
Are you doing work?
Okay, so we have our square here. Make sure that it's at your top, so you know which side is your top of the shadow box. I've taken some more straw and I'm just kind of crumpling it into a circle. That's going to be the bottom of your nest. Just kind of making it into a loose spiral and then overlapping some of it so it kind of looks like it's woven underneath there. Now to secure it, I'm going to use hot glue. This is just a mock nest. It's not like a actual nest. And then squeeze this down tightly into place so that it sticks. And you'll have to be careful because that can be hot. You can trim your excess as well because this is not going to really be seen all that well, especially around the edges. Okay. Here's the very base of the nest. Now let's start on the outside rim. Do you recall we were making a round circle? Now it's been loosening, so we have to tighten it again. Which doesn't really take too much effort. Just have to keep your straw around. Shows how much patience you have to do this project. Oh, here comes Checkers. crazy kitty. Check. And come back when that's pretty close to being done. So last night when I finished the project, what I did was, after I had the ring on, I used the hot glue and I put it in places where you couldn't really see, which I did by pulling the nest apart a bit, inserting the glue and squeezing. And as I squeezed down, I gently pulled up a bit to make this raised form. I also took grass onto the sides where it was just plain cardboard, and I put down the layer of glue and I took a bundle of it, and so that it was in a straight row, put it down and then trimmed the edges. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start weaving in some of the fluffy material. I may also weave in some more grass as well. Trying to stretch this out a little bit. You don't want to twist it because then it would resemble yarn too much. Just kind of pat it down a bit. I have woven some stuff in there. I'm not sure how well you can actually see this, but there's some old man's beard in there, as well as a couple little pieces of newspaper and some wool. So what I'm going to do is make this look more fluffier. It's going to use a bit of hot glue, but not a lot because you don't want the hot glue to be seen. Even though it's not really going to matter much because our mouse is going to be laying in here over top of it. Just put a few little pieces just randomly strung through. One thing to remember about the mouse nest is that it is an organized type of chaos. It's just stuff that's been chewed up and just stuffed in. I've done some more weaving, and I've also added a few other little touches to the nest. If you can see, there's some sort of dried seed there and a leaf. Another leaf up in this corner. And what appears to have been a dried mushroom that I found in the bag of the grass. So we're going to get our little mouse and see how they fit in there. I've been storing them in another shadow box. That way the little fella didn't get lost. Here's our cute little critter. See if the camera focuses. There we go. See their cute little face there. Now, this little mouse, whoop, if I can keep the mouse from breaking before I get it in the box, had damage to one side. So this is the side that we will lay them on in the box. You can see there is where the skull had been burnt. This is from the extreme heat of the engine. Alright, and the mouse is still clutching their little treasures. So I'm going to lay them in. Find the right position. Move some of this fluff around. I think that right there is our position for this little one. So since this is going to be a fixed position mount, meaning that it will never be taken out of this, I'm going to apply some hot glue onto the back of the mouse, or in the spot that the mouse is going to be laying. Just let that cool for a tiny fraction. Alright, this is how our little mouse is going to be. So just put them into position. Pull some of the stuffing up so that way it's wrapping around the mouse. And lightly push down. That way it's like they're deep in the nest asleep. Here we go. Just going to adjust some of the stuffing. Brush their little fur a bit. I think this will look nice right in here beside the mushroom, even though you won't really see it much. Okay, and there it is. Little mouse in a nest. The shadow box is going to need a bit of cleaning, but I'll just put him in right now to see how it all looks. I think that looks pretty cute.